It's 5:30 in the morning, Monday morning, as I begin this. I'm trying to get this filmed before I got to go to work today. I ran across a story over the weekend that I couldn't find myself but interested in, and it's a pretty messed up story involving the murder of an inmate serving time in a Mississippi prison, I believe. I know he was in Mississippi, just not sure if it was in a prison or a jail. Probably a prison, right? This murder took place earlier this month on October the 2nd, 2025, involving a 23-year-old man who lost his life by the name of Cameron Roby. They say that this guy was brutally attacked inside an East Mississippi corrections facility by his cellmate and reportedly beaten and tortured for several hours before staff found him. Now, I'm going to start first with this. When you hear about a situation like this taking place, my mind automatically goes to, well, Buddy probably had some messed up charges. That's what I was thinking. But I tried to go down this rabbit hole as much as I could to find out what this guy was serving time for, and I don't think that he was serving time for anything like that. I ran across a news article in relation to this guy getting killed. It says Vicksburg native dies after alleged assault in prison. I don't know why they have to word it like that, saying alleged. The man was beaten to death inside of a prison cell by his cellmate, and we're saying that this was an alleged assault. Cameron Roby, a Vicksburg man incarcerated in the Mississippi Department of Corrections, has died after being hospitalized for 2 weeks. Holy moly. Was this guy beaten to a pulp, barely with a pulse still left in his body? I thought he was beaten to death. It seems like he was beaten to a state that he had to be meta-flight evac'd out of this facility and put on life support. Was he in a vegetative state? They said he died after being hospitalized for 2 weeks. The inmate has been identified as a 23-year-old Vicksburg native. According to MDOC officials, Roby was found injured and unresponsive in his cell on October the 2nd, 2025, while being housed at the East Mississippi Correction Facility in Lauderdale County. Prison medical staff responded immediately, and Roby was airlifted to a hospital in Jackson, where he remained under medical care until his death. Information shared with the Vicksburg Daily News by the family indicated that Roby was allegedly beaten by another inmate, though MDOC has not released details about the circumstances surrounding the incident. Roby had been incarcerated since 2021 following his conviction for aggravated assault and armed robbery. His projected release date was 2 years from now, January 2027, according to MDOC records. The Mississippi Department of Corrections is continuing to investigate the incident. He's been locked up since 2021. He was getting out in 2027, so he possibly had something like a 10-year sentence for this aggravated assault and armed robbery, which I'm going to say is not a whole lot of time for those type of charges. When I was 18 years old, I was in the midst of a drug addiction pretty heavily. There's only been like 2 or 3 times in my life, which is far too many, that I was really battling with addiction personally. And each of those times, my sobriety would come in the form of incarceration. It would be getting locked up that would help me to get sobered up. But when I was 18 years old, I was in the midst of probably one of my worst addictions. And during that time, I stole some money, essentially is what I did. I was getting high with another guy, and I said, hey, I'll be right back. I took the money, and I never returned. And, of course, I took that money and went and scored and partied by my lonesome. Well, a few days later, the police would come knocking on the door where I was staying at, and I would be arrested for a robbery charge. What was it called? A strong-armed robbery, meaning I didn't have a gun, essentially saying that I beat this man up and robbed him. which obviously was not the case, and I had to fight that in court, and miraculously, thank God that I was able to do so. I don't know how I was able to beat that charge other than saying, hey, that's not how it happened, and telling it exactly how it did go down. We were getting high. I took the money and never came back. I ended up getting a simple assault charge and a petty larceny instead. But again, still having to wear an assault charge for something that I didn't do. I share this with you because I'll never forget sitting in the bullpen and having my court-appointed lawyer come to me and say, Mr. Guerrero, Guerrero? And there was a handful of us down in this bullpen, and I muster my way up to the bars. I say, yeah, that's me. He says, I'm your court-appointed lawyer, and I'm here to represent you. And he's fumbling through his paperwork, and he says, it looks like you're in here on a murder charge. And I immediately broke out into a cold sweat because I realized right then and there, this guy had no clue who I was. Seems like he was overworked and underpaid, in way over his head, in too deep. And holy shit, this is who my life is in the hands of when we're about to walk up into the courtroom. I said, buddy, what are you talking about? I'm not in here for a murder charge. I'm in here for a robbery that I didn't do. He finally found my paperwork and he says, oh yeah, that's right. I got you right here. Hey, I just want to let you know real quick before we go any further. If you get convicted of this, it's a mandatory 20 years. That was nice. I share that story with you because this guy had an aggravated assault and an armed robbery, and he only ended up serving 6 years. If you're locked up in 2021 and your release date is January of 2027, forgive me for saying this because this man lost his life. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But is this a case of who did you tell on? Or maybe the cellmate that he was housed with was from a rival set, a different neighborhood. I don't know how they do things down in Mississippi, but I got to imagine that the gang life is probably pretty tough down there. But imagine this young guy, 23 years old, saying, hey, look, this cell that y'all are trying to put me in, I'm not going in this cell. I can't go in this cell because of X, Y, and Z, because potentially there's a beef there. How long was this Cameron Roby in this cell before this attack took place? It said that I read somewhere, and I don't know if it was in this story or not, that he had just recently been transferred to this facility. Well, how recent? Was it on site? Was it a couple of days? A couple of weeks? Did Cameron Roby try to get out of this cell? Is there a paper trail of him writing a note, yo, I'm not good here, that fell on deaf ears? I also just ran across this. There was another Cameron Roby back in 2018 who was convicted of murder for shooting his girlfriend in the head.
Guilty. After just over 4 hours of deliberation, that was the jury's call in the murder trial of Cameron Roby. He admitted that he shot and killed his girlfriend.
Yeah, but he insisted it was an accident. Paul Venema takes us through closing arguments.
Cameron Roby was arrested for murder just hours after he fired a single shot into Adrian A.J. Dameron's head as the couple argued inside this East Side apartment.
I don't know where that took place at. I don't believe that it took place in Mississippi. I wonder if it was a case of mistaken identity. Maybe they thought that this Cameron Roby was that guy. But that crime happened in 2018. This one happened in 2021 and involved an aggravated assault and an armed robbery. Here's another post that I ran across in relation to Cameron Roby's murder from a Facebook group called Mississippi Department of Corruption. If you've got an entire Facebook group dedicated to the corruption taking place in a state's prison system, obviously that's a good indicator that there's a lot of bad shit that's taking place there. Another brutal attack at EMCF. On October the 2nd, 2025, another violent attack occurred in Unit 1 Alpha at East Mississippi Correctional Facility. We have been able to confirm the identity of 23-year-old Cameron Roby, an inmate who was allegedly brutally assaulted by his cellmate for several hours before being discovered by staff. I hate to try to paint this picture, but if this was a fight that Cameron Roby couldn't win. You're trapped in a cell with a guy that you just can't beat. And he is brutally attacking you, beating you. You've got to be in there screaming for help. How did this take place for several hours without the staff being any wiser to this? Don't they do rounds there? How did nobody hear this? Roby was transported to the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson in critical condition. His current condition remains unknown. So this story came out on October the 11th. The attack took place on October the 2nd. And mind you, we read that he stayed on life support for 2 weeks. Sources claim that the injuries he sustained were extremely severe. While details are still emerging, this incident once again raises serious concerns about staffing, supervision, and safety inside EMCF, a facility long associated with systematic violence, neglect, and inadequate oversight. The public deserves transparency, and the families of those incarcerated deserve answers. And he had 2 sentences. I'm guessing for aggravated assault and armed robbery, and his total length of sentence was 10 years. They say his entry date was on 7/14/2021, and his location change date was on 10/2/2025. That was the day that the attack took place. Are they saying that he was transferred to this facility and on the same day is when the attack happened? Or are they saying his location changed on 10/2 because that's when he was medevac airlifted out of there, where he would end up remaining on life support for 2 weeks before he would pass away? There was a comment on this that I want to share with you guys that says, why is it that most of the inmates are being attacked just days after they have been moved to a different location? Are they being moved to be attacked? And this page would actually respond and say, in this case, it shows that Cameron Roby was moved that day, the day the incident occurred, because he was transported to the hospital. That's what Unit Z indicates. One final thing I'll share with you. I don't know if this is the same guy or not. This is another Cameron Roby down in Mississippi, Starkville to be specific. Not sure if this image looks anything like the guy who passed away. This story also came out in 2023, and I believe that what we were reading said that everything happened in 2021. They said a man has been arrested in connection to a Thursday morning shooting. Cameron Roby, 21 years old at the time, he was 23 when he passed away, so this has to be the same guy, was allegedly involved in a shooting at an intersection of Highway 12 and Louisville Street following an argument at Westside Market. A vehicle was damaged in the shooting, but no injuries have been reported. That could potentially be where that aggravated assault came from. Who's to know? Crazy story. I just wanted to share this with you guys to make you aware. I found this to be very insane and eye-opening. And I think that this is a type of story that deserves to have a lot more attention than it's getting. So I just wanted to try to do my part in relation to that. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say in relation to this. So please leave a like and a comment on this video letting me know exactly what you think. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted and make the most of every day. Peace.